When I first meet with a person, I typically don't launch into a lengthy explanation about natural multiplicity. That can be intimidating and distracting. Usually the best thing to do is to help them discover one or more of their parts and then explain to them about natural multiplicity. But it is helpful to begin to introduce them to parts language right off the bat. How do you do that? Well, you repeat back what you heard when they explain their problem, but in parts language. Say, for example, someone is struggling with anxiety. You can respond, "It sounds like a part of you is pretty anxious." Then you can ask them what they think of that part. Do you like that anxious part of yourself? They might say, "No, I hate it." Then you can negotiate. If we could get to know that anxious part of you and find out why it's anxious and see if we can bring some perspective or comfort to it so that it's not so anxious, would you like that? If they say yes, then you can start to explore the anxious part and get to know it. Sometimes when people come to you and tell you about their problems, their inner conflict is obvious. So you can respond, again using parts language. Let's say, for example, that they come to you because they find themselves being impatient and overly critical of their children. After hearing their story, you might say, "So it sounds like a part of you really wants to be a good parent, patient and kind and gracious, but then there's another part of you that reacts to your children's childishness with anger and criticism. Does that sound right?" Or take the example of someone who wishes he didn't procrastinate so much. After listening to his story, you might say, "So it seems that there's a responsible part of you that wants to succeed and accomplish things, but there's also a part of you that wants to avoid difficult things and advocates putting them off." Now, I find that most people don't object to this parts language. For most, the idea of different parts within themselves seems to fit their experience. But sometimes people will object to the parts language. When they do, I'll use a different word, such as, "Do you like that aspect of yourself?" Or, "Do you like that aspect of your personality?" And if they still find that uncomfortable, you can refer to the emotion itself. What do you think of the anxiety? Do you like it? If we could get to know and understand the anxiety and bring some perspective to it so that you wouldn't be so anxious, would you like that? Or you could ask, when the parts language bothers them, maybe you could resolve the objection with some more explanation about natural multiplicity. We're not trying to hide our understanding of multiplicity. We're just trying to avoid being needlessly complicated and confusing. Now, a lot's happening when you reflect the person's problem back to them in parts language like this. You're doing reflective listening, making sure you understand their problem. You're introducing them to parts language. You're helping them choose a target part. And you're finding out if they would like to better understand that part. After you've chosen a target part, you want to go through Renew's 5 steps in order to get to know the part better. I'll introduce the 5 steps in the next section. But in this section, I'd like to introduce what we call going inside. When we help someone find a part, often we encourage them to focus inward, to close their eyes, take a few deep breaths, relax, and just notice whatever's happening in their inner world, whatever they find inside. And we encourage them to report whatever they see, sense, or feel. Sometimes we say, "My job is to coach you as you explore your heart, and your job is to notice and report whatever emotions, body sensations, thoughts, images, or memories that come into your mind as we do this." We encourage them to report whatever is happening. Sometimes the recipient has a particular idea of what he thinks he should be looking for, so he doesn't pay attention perhaps to an image, thinking it's a distraction, or to a memory that seems irrelevant, or a thought that seems unimportant. Now, when someone is focused inside, it's your job as the caregiver, to strike a balance between keeping abreast of what is happening and giving the recipient adequate time to process. As his coach, you do need to know what's happening, but on the other hand, you don't want to be constantly interrupting his exploration of his inner world. As you work with each recipient, you'll get to know how that person processes. People vary greatly in how quickly they process and how much coaching they need. It's good to seek feedback from the recipient after the session to make sure you're not overly interrupting or, on the other hand, not providing enough help. After someone has been sitting in silence for a while and I ask them what's happening, it's not uncommon for them to say, "Nothing." Or when you ask the Lord to help the person notice whatever he needs to notice or understand, and then you ask the person what's happened, it's not uncommon to hear nothing. Often I'll respond, "Describe nothing." Tell me what happened. When we ask the Lord, did you sense yourself listening? What's going on inside? Does nothing mean that you're feeling peaceful? Or are you feeling more blank or numb? What are you noticing? Now, when someone is taking quite a while in their internal processing, it's common for our own caretaking parts to become anxious, or for a skeptical part to start doubting that this will work. So check your own heart and notice when you're not in self and are feeling anything other than the 8 C's. Often during the session, you can ask one of your own parts to step back and give you some space so that you can be with this person with curiosity, compassion, and courage. And then after the session, or when you're doing your own inner work, you can work with any of your own parts that tend to object while you're facilitating sessions.